I'm Alex Fitzsimmons. Welcome to Greatest Games Never Played, a Lantern Light Studios production. Reno, you're my co-host. How you doing today?
Uh, I'm hoping that we have a great episode tonight, that will kind of stop me from jumping off a fucking bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I don't know what's going on with our team, man. I'm just trying to wrap my head around who to blame. Fingers to point. This NFL season has sucked balls right now for this city that we live in. Sure, it's been good for everybody, for most people, but yeah, dude, I want to fire everybody.
Well, I doesn't seem likely you're gonna have that kind of control between now and when time this airs, but you never know.
No, Howie never gets my letters, or at least he never writes back.
I assume it's just you sending him a very "It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia" Mac-esque letters, hoping to get a catch with him.
Yeah, I write it in crayon. Yeah, I color, like, pictures of, like, his office on fire, somebody else drafting players, generally us being successful, and him not being there to watch it, but, and we won a Super Bowl a few years back. That's the craziest thing about it.
It does seem like a
But
long time ago.
it seems like a lifetime ago, but I digress, and, I think, we're gonna have a good one tonight, man. Yeah, I can't wait.
Okay. So what we usually do here is we take a look at historic moments in sports and kind of try and reimagine how they could have gone differently if events had turned out a little bit differently and how it would have affected the sports world, the athletes, and just the world at large in some cases. So without further ado, let's take it over. Let's get our topic from our man in the sky, Taro Sujimoto.
The modern athlete is bigger, stronger, faster, and better than they have ever been before in history. They have access to more efficient training, more knowledge about nutrition, and better equipment to work with. In contrast, we are told that the athlete of today is soft, pampered, and wouldn't stand up to the rough and more physical play of yesteryear. We hear of the golden era of sports as a time that has already passed. The greatest players of all time played in eras that can only be seen in grainy black and white highlight reels. But how would the modern athlete have fared if given the chance to compete against the Hall of Famers, legends, and greats of eras gone by? Enter Alexander Ovechkin, the Great Eight, undoubtedly one of the finest goal scorers of all time in the NHL. With top-end speed, size, a reckless style, and an unstoppable shot, he has climbed up the all-time goal-scoring list to become a legitimate challenger at Gretzky's career mark. But would his size and speed have translated into the days of the original six franchises? Would he be able to handle the vicious elbows and skills of Gordy Howe, or the stacked Hall of Fame talent in Montreal? On this episode, Alex and Reno uncover what if Alex Ovechkin brought his talents to the NHL during the original six era of the 1940s.
And we're back. So we're taking a look at Alex Ovechkin in this rewind series. We're going to send him back in time and see how exactly he would have done in a different era than the one he plays in today. We got one of the greatest goal scorers of all time. Some would say the greatest goal scorer of all time.
Yeah,
Throwing us
physical
back
specimen.
into a different kind of era, a different kind of game. Any thoughts on that, Reno?
Yeah, I'm interested in this because first and foremost, my knowledge of old-time hockey is probably nowhere near on the level of yours and some
Mhm.
other big hockey heads, so I'm almost ready to sit back and learn a little bit. I have a lot of questions, and it's cool bringing Ovechkin out there because I love this guy. I think this guy would have, I think this guy's great on any team. Like, if you're a fan of any team, you want him. He's a physical specimen. And he doesn't miss a lot of time, and he's a superstar. So, yeah, I'm ready to get going.
Well, I guess if we want to really talk about this, I guess we got to explain who Ovechkin is to people who don't know, because you, like you mentioned there, you don't know a whole lot about this, and you're not alone in the sports world of considering hockey to be one of the less popular sports, despite my cries of otherwise.
Wait, you're
So
saying me?
yeah, well, I think you and a lot of other people kind of say, hockey's not it's not my number one sport. So
Well,
let
I
me
don't dismiss it. I have a tremendous amount of respect for it. I love it. I just want to clarify. I do not dismiss it, but you would be correct in assessing that, like, my my love and passion goes more towards football and basketball,
Yeah.
but I love learning about hockey
So,
now
so,
even
so I
more.
I guess what we got to do is we got to talk about who Ovechkin is and talk a little bit about the eras and how it's different, and then kind of see what would have happened had we did reinsert Ovechkin back in time, drop him this era. So Alex Ovechkin, he's a draft pick from to the Washington Capitals back in the 2004 entry draft. He went first overall. Um, Interesting little thing about that is Ovechkin. There's a lot of buzz about this guy before he comes out in the NHL. He's he's like the next big thing. Everyone's aware of this guy for years. And so the previous draft, the 2003 draft, the Florida Panthers tried to draft him a year ahead of time. Can you imagine a team doing that in any other league? And their argument was he was close to the threshold of being eligible for the draft. He was like 2 days away. Like his birthday was 2 days away. And they said with the leap years, he's actually 18. So they wait to the fourth round to try and just sneak him in. And they have to shut the whole draft down, meet with the league. It's a whole big thing. And they're like, no, and they go, no, you can't have him. They're like, okay, so they take someone else. Next round comes
That's
around. Next round comes around. They do it again.
You know what? Man,
and they, and they,
respect.
and they did it 4 more times before they insisted on getting it in writing in case they could talk the league into changing their mind that they would have Ovechkin in the 7th round of the draft before he's supposed to be eligible.
Well, here's the question. Did they lose those picks? Like,
No,
were
no,
they still able to make those
no,
picks?
still made the picks. They just slowed the
Wow.
whole thing down. I like it. It's a ballsy move.
It's totally ballsy. I have mad respect for you. You know what? Fuck it. You know your guy, go get him.
Yeah,
And
no.
that's a good argument with the leap year. I mean, they could have said, "Hey, in dog years, this guy's well over the like."
Yeah. No, I thought that's a great move right from the beginning,
That's
to
awesome.
introducing you to Ovechkin and who he
You
is.
know what? Maybe those warm weather climates do deserve a team after all for that move. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
big shout out to Rick Dudley for a good try there on the general
Absolutely.
manager.
Love
So,
it.
so he gets taken in the next year in 2004 by the Washington Capitals, and his first year in the league, they go on strike. So he ends up missing an entire year his first year. So he's a year behind the 8 ball right away. And during that strike year, you may have heard of another guy gets drafted, Sidney Crosby. So they end up coming into the league the same year, the following year. That's essentially they're both their rookie year. And these two guys, taking different years, first overall each year, are locked in kind of a battle for their entire careers, or at least they're compared to each other their entire careers. And right off the bat, they're competing for the Calder Trophy for the Rookie of the Year. Anytime one of them does something, the other one is like, oh well, Crosby hasn't done that, or Ovi hasn't done that. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic that we pitted the two biggest stars in the NHL right from the gate against each other. And I think it's done really a lot of good for both of them. Really, they both have had a main foil, a main rival their entire career.
Yeah, it's like Peyton and Brady.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Except for they weren't pitted against each other right from the beginning. These guys were,
Yeah.
which is it's kind of a unique, strange thing that happened there. But yeah, that's what happened. So Ovechkin comes in. He wins the Rookie of the Year. He's lighting the league on fire with giant big hits. I mean, electric plays. Like someone who, if you didn't see Ovechkin back then, you missed something there. He was fun to watch. He would just cook around guys. He was make shots falling down, laying on his back. He scored. There's highlight reels of him scoring goals, laying on his back, shooting the puck on NHL goalies. Like this guy's highlight reel is something to see. I recommend it if you have, I don't know, an hour and a half, like just to watch this guy's goals. It's something to see. But nowadays he's famous for scoring goals from one spot. It's kind of it's his office is over the left circle where he gets off one-timers with his right-hand shot from the left circle. Everyone knows where it was happening. Everyone knows where it's going. And the guy continues to lead the league in goals
You can't
almost
stop
every
it.
year. They can't stop it. Like, so some people, I've seen people go, oh, all he does is that one thing. And you're like, well, we'll stop it.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
exactly.
we'll
Stop
stop
it.
it.
It
It should
ain't
be
broke,
easy to
don't
stop.
fix it. I mean,
But
like,
early on, he was electric. He's all over the place. Big hits, skating real hard. He just a joy to watch. He really was the most fun player in the whole league to watch. Um, he's got a super quick release. Big guy, 6'3", 235. Um, something else that's unique about a guy that size, and I think this is what makes him. We talk about the greatest goal scorers of all time. Like the reason that we can even have that conversation about a guy like Ovechkin is because he's been so durable that you mentioned earlier. He He's missed what 2.7% of his games in his entire career in a 15-year career so far. This guy does not miss games. So he's missed 32 games total. 14 of them were for suspensions or resting going into the playoffs. So over an 82 game season, this guy's missed, what do we got here? 18 games due to injury. That's incredible. Over one has played 1,152 regular season games out of a possible 1,184.
It's like an iron horse of hockey.
He really is. He really is. Which is, you have guys who have Iron Man streaks, but they're not playing the same way Ovechkin does, which is throwing his body into everything, crashing everywhere, skating hard. This guy doesn't do anything soft.
Oh yeah, no one ever accused this guy of being a cupcake. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
that is
He
for
is.
sure. Unless he's back checking, in which case they do accuse him of that. Like they do, his defense is a constant topic among hockey fans. Is Ovechkin doing enough on the other side of the ice? But I think one of the interesting things, one of the fun things about Ovechkin here is his personality, and I think that's shown through specifically talking about his health here in his second season when he's in a game, he takes a shot off his foot, and everyone's where here's the young kid, it's his second year. He just took a shot off his foot. Everyone's worried. Oh, he broke his foot. We lost him for the year. He doesn't come back that rest of that game. So the next day, he's in practice, just wheeling around like everything's fine. And so the media comes to him after the game, and they're like, "What happened here? Like, is everything okay?" And his answer was, "It's okay. Russian machine never break." This guy is something else. Like he's fucking Ivan Drago. This guy, like
Dude's a monster. I
he
mean, he's
is.
a
But like,
monster.
what a quote. What a quote.
Shit, if he's 6'3", put him on skates, that makes him what, like 6'5" on skates almost, like
Probably a little more than that, but yeah.
yeah, he's a monster. Yeah, think about add a couple more inches to him. And the fact that like, dude, this guy's legs are like tree trunks. He looks like he's kicking down bamboo forest and shit. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
So I guess we talk about how he's doing it. We talked about his shot, but one of the key things he does is he shoots a lot. You'd be hard pressed to find anyone he's going to break Ray Bork's record for most shots in a career. Ray Bork's sitting at 6,000 something. He's already at 5,500. He's putting up 4.8 shots per game. Ray Bork was putting up like 3.7. He's shooting all the time, all the time, like more than anyone else in the league. Is more than we've ever seen anyone shoot.
I
This
love it.
guy who's got the best, arguably the best shot, is shooting all the time. He's already at 706 goals right now. Gretzky's record's 894, which he's 34. He's 34 years old. Ovechkin. He's within grasp of this thing. He's 192 goals away, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's a realistic discussion we can have that he may actually break one of the unbreakable records that we've been looking at, because Gretzky has so many of these records. We're like, well, no one will ever do that. That's never going to happen. But you figure that just this last year, he scored 48 goals to tie Pasternak for the lead in goal scoring. So he's 34, still the best goal scorer in the league, still putting up close to 50. He could feasibly break this 190 goals in 4 or 5 years.
Yeah,
He's
that's
gonna
what I was
have to play
thinking.
till he's 38, 39, but with
No,
that
but
kind
I
of
mean,
durability, there's a reason to believe he could do it.
I agree with you 100% on that. I mean, if this guy's averaging like 40 to 45 goals a year, I could definitely see him playing another 5 years. Why not? I mean, especially the shape that he's in, like,
And that's
there's no
something
reason
else.
to think he can't go in there. He can't play till into his 40s.
And that's where you're actually running the reasons why maybe he can't. Like this guy, yeah, he works out hard. Yeah, I mean, you can see all the videos of him working out in Russia every off season. He goes hard. There's no doubt about it. He never gets hurt. But he does things that make you go, I don't know what his durability is long term. You see him drinking in the off season and partying hard in the off season. When he's on the bench and he's drinking Coca Colas instead of water, he has water bottles full of it. Like this guy is kind of a mutant. Like he's not doing the right things that you would expect an athlete of this caliber to be doing to take care of their body.
I'm
It's
pretty
where he works out, but he's not eating the right things. That's for sure.
Yeah, imagine if he cut the coke out. He'd probably, you know what I mean, tighten up even more. Like I know, like I don't drink soda anymore, and I stopped and dropped like 15 pounds. But I know if I drank soda now, I'd be an even bigger fat ass. You know what I mean?
So yeah, so there's reasons to be concerned that maybe this doesn't happen, but we've seen none of it yet. All we've seen is him be durable. All we've seen is him just continue to put up goals. and be the most consistent goal scorer I've ever seen. So I think it'll be interesting to see over the next 4 or 5 years, just to see if this is a record that Gretzky's going to lose here. That it's
I
one of
think
the
he
most.
could pass it. I think he
Yeah.
can. I mean, think about Yager. I mean, Yager played like until he was like 100. It
Now,
seemed like, you know what I
Yager
mean?
did all the right things to take care of his body, though. That's the
But
argument.
maybe maybe that coke is like
That's the argument, is that he's just a mutant. He's different than everyone else. What are you going to do? Like,
yeah, like maybe this guy's like, you know what? Why change my diet if if I'm still able to do what I can do and I'm still good? Like why fuck with it? You know, even
yeah.
if maybe those cokes give him a little bit more vigor. Maybe they make his cock a little harder and this guy's ready to play. You know what I mean? Like, fuck it.
Uh, we're like 10 minutes in. We're talking about Ovechkin's cock already.
Well, I always think about like when they won, right? Was that 17, 18? Like, wasn't there like the rumor or wasn't there the story that he like had like a beach house and he like drank out of the Stanley Cup like every day for like a month?
I mean, I don't even know if it's a rumor. I think that's
Like
confirmed. Like,
pure
like
facts, right?
the man was swimming in fountains in public all around DC for the entire off season, just running around, chugging beers in the streets, and then just partying, like literally for months.
That's awesome.
Look on YouTube. You can find countless videos of him doing insane things after they won the Stanley Cup. For months after they won the Stanley Cup, it's a party to rival all other parties ever. Like,
Like, how do
it's
you
the Ovechkin party.
I would love this guy on our team. First of
Oh
all,
yeah,
our city
how
would
could you
love
not?
him, and all I want is somebody that shoots the puck all the time. I don't care. Shoot it. You know what I mean? This is what this dude does.
Ovechkin is the answer to every fan yelling "shoot" at the power play. That's for sure.
God, we have so many fucking trigger shy fuckers in the city. Like this guy, you know what? Keep shooting. Give him the puck again. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Fuck it.
the guy has like I said, the best one timer I've ever seen. He's that thing is money all the time, and that doesn't seem to be going away. You might say his speed's lost a little bit, but that shot has not changed. That looks just as good as it did day one.
Yeah,
Um,
he's a strong man.
yeah, and like I mentioned about him hitting too, like he is third all time in hits since it's been recorded. Which is not it's just more recent, really, since he came around. But that's letting you know this guy's a superstar who's throwing the body around.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how much protection has he had throughout his career?
Me-
Has he ever really had like a super ton of guys that like watch his back? He kind of could fight on his own.
Yeah, he doesn't fight often. He doesn't fight often. He's very very physical. He doesn't fight, but I would say this: when he has fought, he has been pretty effective. I mean, he's fought. He's had 4 fights his whole career, which is not a lot. But you wouldn't want your leading goal scorer, the guy you're talking about as the greatest goal scorer of all time, throwing his very valuable hands at people's heads.
Fucking,
Um,
I imagine him being like Habib, yeah, on ice, just a Russian bear, just fucking
yeah,
wrestling people and hitting them with elbows.
and that's when he fought Mike Richards, and he fought Brandon Dubinsky, and he fought Paul Gostad, and those guys are all big. Richards isn't big, but he's certainly tough. The other two are big and tough. And he held his own against all of them. You can watch the fights and say, yeah, he wrestled them, or it was quick and over with. There wasn't a whole lot of real big contact shots landed, but
Well,
in the
Richards had
play.
those coke muscles, you know what I mean?
But in 19, he fought Andrei Svechnikov, the guy famously this year for pulling the lacrosse goal off, the Mike Leg goal, the Michigan goal, whatever you want to call it, where you scoop the
Yeah.
puck up and tuck it in the top corner. But he famously knocked this kid out and knocked him out of the playoffs in 19. The kid wanted to fight him. He wanted to fight his fellow countryman, and Ovechkin reminded him which one of them has real grown man strength, and laid him out. End of the season for him.
Yeah, I
So
imagine that guy, like, if they could kick in in like an ice hockey fight, you know what I mean, without hitting the bleeds, I imagine him just tearing somebody's leg up with some fucking Muay Thai or something like that. This dude's he's monster. Dude is shredded. It's
so this,
crazy.
on the next GGMP, Ovechkin in the octagon. All right.
Yo, I'm down with doing that. I think, had he had about 10 years of training, he'd be a fucking animal to stop.
Yeah,
You know what
I
I
mean, I
mean?
think he's just one of those freak athletes that you're right. And, some of these guys, they would just be great at whatever they were put into when they were young. Um, I think he's just one of those guys, as evidenced by we talked about the way he does and doesn't take care of his body, and it doesn't seem to matter. He just
He's got like
continues to
yeah,
truck along.
he definitely has like an old time hockey feel, but
He
with
does.
new age skill set and like evolutionary like physicality. But he's got that mentality. That's why I like him so much because he's like, oh, Russian machine don't break. I could see him fucking being like, you know what, I need a shot during halftime. You know what I mean? Coming back out and red eyed and fucking people up and shooting a whole bunch of
Yeah.
shots.
So he's obviously he's we mentioned he's Russian, of course. So there's if we're gonna drop him back in time, I think it's relative just to mention that he wouldn't be the first Russian, but he'd be essentially the first Russian trained player, depending on when we drop him. Because there was who do we have here? We have David Shriner, born in Saratov in the Russian Empire, moved to Canada as a toddler, was playing in the NHL in 1933. So guys from Russia have been there, but they weren't really Russians. This guy was essentially a Canadian who was born there. But the first real Russian to come play would have been Victor Catoulev was the first Soviet player taken in the entry draft, though he never played. This guy is a whole separate story. I recommend reading up on him. He's a Flyers pick. He was the first Soviet player taken. He was dead by the time he was 39 and was thrown out of many leagues for a whole bunch of insanity that I'm not going to get into because it's not relative to this, but I recommend you read up on them. There's some interesting, weird things going on there.
Jesus, and he never played. He was drafted, but never played for the Flyers.
Yeah, yeah. He
It's like the
was.
basketball player the Sixers took that never played for them. It's like,
Yeah, this is back obviously in '75 when there's a Cold War going on. There's the beginnings of a Cold War at least, and Russia was kind of protecting all their athletes and keeping them in house, and they didn't want him to leave. So taking him was more of a, hey, I hope this happens, not really a that we own the guy's rights. This is more just staking a claim if something ever comes of this. But Slava Fetisov was the first player in to come over and finally join the NHL, and he did that in '89-'90 when the Russians, the Soviet Union allowed him to come over. So that would be really the first time we see a real Soviet player come over. But obviously, I'm talking about dropping him back. I'm talking about the '40s. I'm looking at the old time hockey. I'm looking at original six hockey. I'm going to put Ovechkin back in that time. And what do you know about original six hockey? Anything, Reno?
I don't know jack shit.
You know the teams.
I do know some of the teams. Yep. I know Toronto's in there. I know Detroit. I know Boston. I know Montreal. And I'm missing the other two out of my head right now.
I think you got the Rangers and the Blackhawks. I think you missed.
Oh, yes. Chicago.
So that's the original six. So the NHL's been around for a long time, 1917, I believe, with a whole big fluctuating cast of teams coming in and out, folding, moving, anything. But around 40, 43 is when 40 to 42, 43 seasons when we get a solid six teams, and that solid six teams holds on and plays together with only six teams in the league for 25 years before expansion starts, before the great expansion when the Flyers, Kings, Penguins, a whole bunch of other teams joined the league. They doubled the size of the league that year. The St. Louis Blues, Buffalo, they all joined the league in the great expansion. But before that, it was just those six teams running for 25 years, which a lot of people consider some of the golden era of the sport. And go ahead.
Shit, you would think they know each other more than anyone, these teams. So it had to be highly competitive.
Yeah, but the truth of it is, it wasn't.
It was like what, three good teams and three bad teams?
There were three good teams, three bad teams. So over those 25 years, Toronto, Montreal, Detroit won the cup 24 of those years.
Wow.
Yeah, Chicago won the cup once.
Wow.
So it really wasn't that competitive. It was three teams just dummying everyone else, while the other three teams hoped one of them could get in. Because the playoffs worked where the top four teams made the playoffs, and they would play a semifinal 7-game series to lead up to the Stanley Cup final, a 7-game series. So, and you might think, one plays four. Nope, you'd be wrong, because they just didn't know how to work seeding, I guess. So one played three, two played four, and that's the way they did the playoffs for those 25 years. Makes no sense. I hate seeing stuff like that. I see that, I'm like, why are you doing that? It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, like, let's just take the order and then you play this guy and that guy and we'll figure it
Well,
out.
what's the benefit of playing the season to get a better seed if you're not gonna play the worst team? It
Right.
just makes no sense to me. So, that's the way the playoffs work, and that's the again, we talked about those teams being like that. So, I think what the reason people consider it the golden era and a lot of times is because with that small amount of teams, that the talent was so condensed. Those teams were as much as we look back and go, "Oh, those guys can't skate, those guys are slow, those guys can't barely shoot," whatever you wanna say about them. Those were the best players in the world, and, like, there was 8 of them, 8 Hall of Famers in every team, at any given time. Like, it's just kinda the way it was. Those teams were good. They were really good teams, and I think
Yeah.
when we're talking about putting Ovechkin back here, I kind of in my head imagined it being like, well, he's gonna be better than them. He's gonna be bigger because he will be. Eventually, we talked about being 6'3", 235. I mean, the 40s, the average player was 174 pounds. This by
Jesus.
the 60s, they were 182. So they were going up, but not that fast. Like,
And he's probably just as fast, if not faster than half of
yeah,
those guys, you
and
know
I
what I
think
mean?
that's where we got to talk about things like the equipment. Like, obviously, Ovechkin is going to be he's a very powerful man. He's very fast. He's a natural athlete, but there's advantages to the skates they use today, where the blades cut different, the blades curve different in the front and back to allow for quicker turning. And they're sharpened better. The ice is better. Like, there's all these things and the skates had no ankle support. They were just these leather boots, basically. That today, that being said, I think Ovechkin. If I drop back there, you're in the 40, you're in 43. I imagine he's going to take some hockey tape and he's going to tape his ankles up real tight. He's going to create a boot out of tape if he has to. He's going to be able to get something close to his skates because I think there's a if you ever put on someone else's skates, it feels insane for a couple days. But something like this, when it's a skate that he's never even skated, I'm sure it's going to be awkward and weird, but he'll get used to it. Like we mentioned, he's a top tier athlete. So, but it's more than that. It's the sticks too. So we talked about Ovechkin's shot. How much of a impact does his stick have? I mean, we're talking like these sticks back then weren't. They're not the composite sticks they use today. The sticks today are all one piece composite. They're super light. They flex. They give a lot of whip. But back then, back when I looked in the 40s, like these things were made of layers of laminated wood glued together for a lighter, more flexible stick. Because previously, before the 40s, they were hand carving them out of like birch. It was a hand carved one piece stick.
Wow. Was there any
Yeah.
curve to it too?
No, they were flat back in the day.
Oh,
Um,
man.
it was they started to curve a little bit in the 50s. Around the 60s, though, Bobby Hull and Stan Mikita in Chicago. Well, specifically, they're the two guys who are famous for it. They say Stan Mikita was the guy who would he broke his blade into a shape that gave it a curve, and he was out in practice using it and found he could just whip the puck, and it was unpredictable and fast. And they said that's when Bobby Hull and him began heating their sticks up and putting them in door jams and wedging them to like put a curve into the blade of it.
Oh,
And
wow.
that's when it started. That's how players started doing it. And obviously it took over from there. I'm gonna say Ovechkin knows what he's doing with that. He's gonna go back. He might pioneer them by 5 or 6 years. You know what I mean? He's not. I'm not starting him so far ahead that it's gonna give him a huge advantage. But I think it's something he could at least learn how to do.
Yeah, if
He's
you could get it
he's
down.
gonna come back with a little bit of knowledge, from today's hockey. At least he knows about curved sticks, you know? He doesn't mean he can go make a composite stick, but he can at least know how to bend his stick a little bit. Um, Interesting thing, though, you're familiar with Gordy Howe, because I think in this era, Gordy Howe's the big name. He's in this case, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna say
Mr.
Ovechkin
Hockey, right?
starts his career. We're gonna say, well, let's pick a good spot to drop him in, right? Where are we dropping him at? We're gonna drop him in 46, 47, the same year that Gordie Howe's rookie year is. I want to put Ovechkin in the same spot with he's in with Crosby. I want to
Wow,
do
it's
that with
Gordy
Gordie
Howe.
Howe. I want Gordie
Wow.
Howe on Detroit, and I want Ovechkin in Toronto. I want Ovechkin on one of those three teams that he's going to be competing and involved with the whole time. Didn't feel fair to put him on Montreal. If you know anything about Montreal's history, it just didn't feel fair. That team is insanely good.
You're a
But
juggernaut. I mean,
yeah, but I like the idea of pitting him against Gordie Howe. I feel like that's his perfect foil. It's the same kind of situation coming in as rookies. So interesting thing about Gordie Howe, you're familiar with the Gordie Howe hat trick, right?
Yes, right. That would be he would be scoring, fighting, right? What is it? Get the whole thing,
A
right?
goal, assist, and a fight.
Yep.
Yep. So you know how many Gordie Howe had in his career?
One? Nah, probably a ton, right?
It's 2.
That I was close.
It's 2. Gordie Howe scored tons of goals, had tons of assists, and fought all the time. It just didn't seem to coincide in the same game very often.
Never consistently happened together. Oh, that's too funny.
Yeah, I believe Cam Neely's the leader with something like 8 or 9, in his career. I could be wrong on that, don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure it's something like that. Um, Another interesting fact about Gordie Howe, I didn't even know until I was doing the research for this, is Gordie Howe used a flat blade. Like we see Crosby uses a very flat blade today because it helps you with your backhand. Like the curved blade is going to give you a stronger forehand. It's going to let you get more whip and lift on the shot, but it's going to kind of take away from your backhand. So Gordie Howe used a flat blade, but his was a little more diabolical than that because Gordie Howe was completely ambidextrous. He could shoot forehand either side, and if you look at his cards, like his hockey cards, you'll see him. He's holding his stick right, left. He's handling the puck right or left. He just switches it midstream, like while he's skating down the ice. He'll just go from righty to lefty. I don't think I've ever seen anyone do that or heard of anyone doing that until I was doing the research on this for this one right here. I'm like, that's so wild. I couldn't even imagine that.
So he could basically put a backhand shot up on you and then switch and go forehand, like, right
Yeah,
there.
right
Wow.
there. He just got to drop this, just move his hand down, the other hand up, and change it from his backhand to his forehand. Like it really is. Like if you, I mean,
It's a great
that's
skill set to have.
such, it's like a cheat code. Like it really is. It is such an
Yeah.
unfair advantage. Like good for him, but like I've never even heard, I never even thought of doing it. Well, like I messed around and go left-handed with a hockey stick, and no one wants to see that. It's embarrassing.
It
But
almost makes it like yeah, because think about this, if, like, you're a basketball player, obviously, you wanna be ambidextrous or be able to, like, go to, either side of the court, like, be
yeah,
able to dribble with your right or your left, and you could score at the basket with your opposite hand, you know what I mean, giving you the advantage or the ability to kinda get away from a block. However, you rarely see anybody take a shot
hmm
with a different hand. You know what I mean? Like, they don't switch up their shot between right and left hand. Usually, you could go to one side, but you use your dominant hand
yeah.
to push, and, like,
And
this
I would
guy
say
knows he's scoring with both hands, like
I kind of view it more as like a baseball thing. Like, yeah, obviously there's switch hitters in baseball, right?
yeah.
But you see where they're at. It would be kind of like you're a switch hitter in baseball. The pitcher's pitching the pitch, and you switch sides in the middle of the pitch, and like that would totally throw the pitcher
Yeah.
off. That's kind of what it would be like. That's such an unfair advantage that it kind of helped in my head. I'm like, oh, this helps explain why this guy who I never really got to see play, a big part of why he was so good, aside from being a physical monster who just bullied everyone. He's smaller than Ovechkin, but for the time, this guy was a strong, strong physical man.
How big was
Um,
he? Like 6 foot, 6'1"?
yeah, he was 6 foot. I believe he was 205, I think, which, at the time, like we mentioned before, the average weight was what, a buck 75. So
Yeah,
he
so
was
he's a
big,
big guy for
and he was just mean. He was all elbows, through elbows, and just there's you can see pictures of like faces that he just
busted
ruined
up.
with punches. He just ruined guys' lives with a punch to the face. I think I sent you a picture of the one guy, the Fontantino, where his nose is basically sticking out his ear after he got punched in the nose.
Yeah, I
Um,
would never wanna get my ass kicked by a guy named Gordy either. Like, that's like you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Just, doesn't seem like the hardest name in the world to
oh
go
yeah,
around
no,
kicking asses.
that's a good strong Canadian name right there. What are you talking about,
Gordy.
Gordon?
I don't know, like, I don't think of Gordon like Gordon, the
There's
Gordon.
generations of tough guys in Canada named Gordy, like
Alright,
after
well,
all named after Gordie Howe. You can bet on
I
that.
got I gotta meet a couple of them because. Yeah, it's like, it's like I trust my Tony and George and Bill against Todd, Gordy, and you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
you don't want to run into Gordo in a beer league game, that's for sure. You don't
Oh,
want to run
probably
into
not,
it. Yeah, no. So all right. So I'm talking about putting him back in this time. How he's going to do. So what other kind of anomalies? What else is different besides the ice, the skates? I think when you look at this stuff, you're talking about the draft. There's no draft until 1963. The players were just kind of signed. They just, you found a guy you liked. It's very similar to baseball, like we talked about before, where if you saw a
Yeah,
guy you liked, you're like, go throw money at that guy. And that was basically how it worked. So,
assuming the top 3 teams had the most money.
Well, most of these teams had money, and like there was most of them could afford because they weren't paying these guys a lot. Like they really weren't. Because for instance, right here, like, but there was like really no rules to it. For instance, Bobby Orr was signed when he was 14 years old to the Boston Bruins, and you know what they gave him? They told his parents they would restucco their house and give them a 5-year-old car. That's how they got Bobby Orr, like,
Oh,
who's
that's
arguably the greatest player of all time. I mean, if you talk, depending who you talk to.
when was he
Um,
drafted? In the 60s?
well, Bobby Orr was not drafted again because
I
he was
mean,
there was no
well,
draft.
signed, I meant,
Yeah,
yes.
but in like the 14, so he's probably late 50s at that time.
Oh, man, like, get yourself a five-year-old, Chevy, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they wanted a car that was no newer than 5 years old. They said,
Stuccoing was big, man. My parents' house I grew up in, stucco, baby.
yeah,
Nothing
that's
to
how
worry.
Bobby Orr ended up playing in the Boston Bruins. So, but yeah, there's this kind of strange situation where anyone can be signed anywhere, um, and they set up farm teams. In fact, really, this is how Montreal became big. Is people say there's a rule that allowed Montreal to take any French Canadian player. And that's sort of true. Montreal was able to take any French Canadian player that was not signed, but they were signing kids when they were 14, so there really was no option for them to take this stuff. So people like to use that as a reason why Montreal was so good in this era. And it's an unfair advantage, yes, but it doesn't really matter because if everyone's signed when they're 14, 15, who's around, who's not signed? Everyone's signed.
Were they also playing in, like, minor leagues and stuff like that
And
when they
there was
signed them?
junior leagues, but really this
Juniors?
is where Montreal made a difference. Montreal kind of created the junior system with
Okay.
their because they would sign players, stack them into their amateur farm teams, and that's kind of the beginning of we see kids coming up and playing, developing through farm systems before you get to the professionals, the AHL, those kind of levels. But Montreal created that, and that's how they were able to stash talent. So they really Montreal was doing something to get ahead of everybody. That's something they were doing first, but it wasn't the French Canadian rights, which get brought up a lot when you talk about why this team was so good back then. So that's another interesting thing about it right there.
Yeah.
When you talk about maybe travel, because you still have to travel, you're like, oh, that's mostly, it's not as far. No West Coast teams. How bad can travel be? It's actually got to be kind of nice, right? You're going from Boston to New York to Montreal to Detroit's pretty far out there. Chicago's a little bit, but it's not. It's a day's drive. You know what I mean?
Still, you're not going out to the West Coast, you're not going down to the
Yeah.
South,
So you think like, hey, this isn't so bad. We're all up north. It's all kind of in the same area around these Great Lakes right here. So yeah, but they had to travel by train. They weren't traveling by plane yet. So it wasn't quite as easy as it would be had they been traveling by plane. They didn't begin traveling by plane. Like they say, 65 seems to be the first instance of teams using planes to travel between games, and even then, that was only in the playoffs. So there's not a whole lot of that kind of stuff going on. As well as we talk about the goalies. Are the goalies good? I think that's a question people ask, right?
I would. I guess they're not gonna be a lot of them are gonna be stand-up goalies, right? Probably in that
Yeah,
time?
yeah. In fact, there was rules against flopping to the ice, but they were changed by this time. But they were allowed to, but they weren't wearing masks, so not a great idea. Not a,
Ooh.
not a great idea. So in 1930, we saw the first use of a mask on Clint Benedict when he wore it to protect an injury he had on his face already, and it's an ugly leather looking thing. And then 59, we have Jacques Plante, who starts wearing his mask against the wishes of his coach, who thinks he's a coward. In fact, is what he tells him. But after winning 18 games in a row, he wins 18 games in a row, and it kind of silenced the critics, and they let Jacques Plante keep wearing this mask, this fiberglass mask he had made, and that was kind of the birth of it. And from there, most goalies start by 69. Most goalies had adopted the mask because they were tired of hitting the face. The last guy was Andy Brown in 1974. This guy decided to just play without a mask all the way deep into the 70s because reasons I don't know.
The balls on that guy. I mean, imagine in the 40s, you've got a monster like Ovechkin. He's now curving his stick earlier,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? And he's gonna have 100 and some mile per hour shot. You get hit in the face by that, you are fucking done. Like, you're
Yeah,
donezo. That's it. That's not a career. That might be your life.
it
You
might
know
be
what
your
I
life,
mean? Like,
right?
yeah.
Get out of the way when this guy's shooting, basically.
Yeah. Putting a steel plate on my face. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, uh,
Ugh.
so So, all right. So we're looking at it. I'm dropping Ovechkin in 43. I think one of the things we got to talk about. I don't want to go season by season, go through his whole thing. I kind of want to go over the broad strokes here. I want to say that I guess it's important to know how many cups the Toronto Maple Leafs won during this time frame without Ovechkin in real life. So if I'm going to start in 43, I'm going to take him all the way. I believe Ovechkin, like we talked about before, he's going to play till he's 39, 40. So I'm going to go till he's 39. So I'm starting him in the same year as Gordy Howe. I'm going to play until he's 39. That means he's going to play to the very last year of the original six, right before the great expansion starts. So during that time, Toronto wins 8 Stanley Cups. So
Wow.
just by default of lacing his skates up and putting on a Maple Leaf jersey, he's going to win 8 Stanley Cups.
Wow.
Like, and again, we talk about there's 3 teams that are winning the cup every year. Like, if you're on one of those teams, you're winning the Stanley Cup.
So now you're putting one of the greatest in our time on a team that was obviously great and won 8 on their own without him.
Without him, yeah.
The fact that he's only won 1 in a 15-year career,
Yeah.
geez.
No, and I think a part of that is because, you look at the teams, we have 32 teams starting, when Seattle comes in soon. And it's just the talent spread out. And I think
Absolutely.
that's a big part of the reason why the 80s were so high scoring was there were 16 new teams that joined the league in 10 years. Like the talent got so diluted so fast that like all of a sudden you had a collection of talent show up on Edmonton, and you had Gretzky and Lemieux show up, the 2 greatest players of all time. And yeah, they lit up a league that was spread really thin. And like that's not a knock on them. They're still the greatest players, but the league was set up for them to dominate, and their teams were set up for them to dominate.
Yeah, and they have a draft too. So now at this point in his career as current day, like the draft is obviously going to make other teams better too.
Yeah.
Back
But
then,
but but
Toronto's just
but it
like,
would
hey,
do
we're
it so
collecting you.
it would do it so slowly, yeah, but all these but Toronto did, Montreal, all the teams were doing it. All
Yeah.
these teams are really good. All these teams are loaded with Hall of Famers. Even the teams that are bad, the when we're talking about Boston, Chicago. I mean, Chicago, we talked about Bobby Hull and Stan Mikita. I mean, they're in Chicago. Those 2 are arguably some of the most important players of the 60s.
Yeah.
Those guys scored a ton of points. But that's my point is that when you drop Ovechkin in this team, you're dropping him into a team that is really good. Like he's not, yeah, he's walked in. I'm going to say, yeah, he's the best player. Yeah, I think he is. But it's not like he's walking into a place full of bums. He's walking into a place that right now I'm looking at Toronto's lineup from that time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Hall of Famers. When he first walks in, 46, 47 is where I'm putting him in.
Wow.
And so he's sitting on a team with 5 Hall of Famers right off the bat.
So his game might be changed a little bit because this guy's probably going to be encouraged to spread the love a little bit.
I don't know if that's Ovechkin's game, and I don't know if that's I don't
Oh,
know if you
clearly isn't.
I don't know if you want to even make a guy like that do it. So I'm not going to make him do it. I'm gonna throw him on a line. I projected his stats out. I've gone through the save percentages of the goalies. I've tried to make adjustments for size, for the skill level of the opposition, for all these things, for his shooting percentage, for power play, because power plays didn't until was it 54, I believe, when you score a power play goal, the penalized player wouldn't come back on the ice. So you could score 18 goals on any minor penalty if you had the time to do it. They stopped it because Montreal, I believe, Jean Beliveau scored like 4 goals on 1 power play, and they were like, "That's the end of that. Let's not do that." But however, interestingly enough, they said that next year power play scoring went up after they changed the rules. So they're like, maybe he didn't really do anything. So that's an interesting number right there to think about.
That's pretty funny.
But so
So everybody's going to change their game around him because he's going to be that talented. Like these guys that were probably scoring.
I think he's a
several.
trigger man on a team that luckily has set up guys on it already.
Yeah.
So he's got really good players around him. Your Sil Apps, your Ted Kennedys, who are all Hall of Famers right here. Those are the guys down the middle right here. So starting out, like when he first shows up, this team wins 3 Stanley Cups in a row, with or without him. So with him, they're winning 3 Stanley Cups. I'm not gonna try and reinvent the wheel here and break down all these numbers. He wins 3 Stanley Cups right off the bat because that's what the team was doing anyway. And I think in that process, you start seeing Gordy Howe's not going to beat him for Rookie of the Year the first year. Ovi's winning Rookie of the Year. He starts winning MVPs, Art Rosses. He's scoring enough points to he's scoring 38 goals, 33 goals. And then in 1950, I got him scoring 55 goals. breaking the record that Maurice Richard set. So, of 50 single goals, which I think is interesting too, because it's a good chance to talk about Maurice Richard and why breaking Maurice Richard's records is probably a bad idea.
Well,
Like,
I'm assuming Maurice Richard is probably a Canadian folk hero.
exactly.
And because it's a predominantly Canadian game, obviously at this time,
He's a
breaking
French
his record is going to probably set Canadians off.
he's a French Canadian, and like a lot of people in Montreal, French Canadians,
Yeah.
they view him as like they'll hear them tell. They say he's our Jackie Robinson. He's the guy who is like, oh, this minority group, the French Canadians, can go on to achieve great things. This is the guy we can look up to and like aspire to be. So for him, he's a folk hero, but he's also actively the captain of the Montreal Canadiens at the same time, breaking all these records.
Wow.
So they booed Bernie Jeffron when he took the lead on it in a single season. He had the goal scoring lead away from him while Richard was hurt. So the guy on their team, on the Canadiens, scores to surpass the guy who's hurt, and they're booing and throwing stuff at the guy on their own team.
Booed their own guy.
They booed their own guy. They rioted in '55 when he was ejected for punching a referee.
What? Dude, that's fandom insanity that I frankly love. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I'm fine with this. I'm fine with the hooligan shenanigans here.
And they said like 3 games before this, Maurice Richard was slapping referees on the ice. And so he escalates to a full-on assault and gets suspended. And they're like, the fans like, no, not Maurice Richard. Like, that can't fly.
Wonder if anybody would cheer a ref if the ref knocked him out. Yeah. Like,
oh, I doubt that. I doubt that very much.
It's not going to be like Rocky in Russia, like Rocky and Drago. They're not going to start cheering for the ref.
So no. So we first start here. We got the 3 cups, and what happens then is in the 4th season here, the league increases from 60 to 70 games, and that's where I have Ovechkin scoring 55 goals and breaking the 50-goal record. But in this year, normally Detroit goes on to beat the Rangers in 7 games, but I think things are going to change a little bit here with Ovechkin on this team. I think this is the time where we look at it and go, well, this is where Ovechkin makes a difference. He's going to win the Art Ross. He's going to win the goal scoring. He's going to win the Hart over this guy, Chuck Rayner. Chuck Rayner, goalie for the Rangers, with a 28-30 record, won the Hart Trophy for the league MVP. Yeah, it gets worse from here. So don't get too mad about this one. When I start going down the list, I was like, what are they doing?
Chuck Rayner's definitely going to be on that episode of people that should have never won.
Chuck Rayner's good. It gets worse from here.
Yeah.
So in this case right here, I have them going on, meeting the Red Wings in the Stanley Cup Finals, Game 7, and I got them locking up their 4th consecutive Stanley Cup. In this case right here, I have the timeline's been changed due to Ovechkin, due to the 55 goals, due to the Art Ross. I have we have a Stanley Cup has been turned over to Ovechkin, 4 Stanley Cups now. The next year, the Toronto Maple Leafs won the Stanley Cup. I'm not going to take it away from them just because they got the better player added to their team. So I'm not going to do that again. And again, I got 50 goals for Ovi, 98 points. He's going to lead the league and all this stuff. 70 games. In this case, he beats out Milt Schmidt for the MVP, right? Milt Schmidt had 22 goals, 39 assists for 61 points.
Milt Schmidt,
who's a Hall of Famer, great player. I'm not taking it away from him, but he scored 61 points and wins the Hart Trophy. In this case, we're going to go ahead and give it to Ovi. But I think to look at that year and go like, well, there's no oversight to begin with. Gordy Howe had 86 points, led the league in goal scoring. Like, how do you give it? He had more assists, more goals, more points. His team was good. Like, his team made the playoffs. Milt Schmidt, none of these things happened. They give him the MVP.
Is this like another one of these like baseball stories where like they wouldn't give a guy an MVP 2 years in a row or something? Like, what the hell is going on here?
That sounds bad. It gets worse as we go along. So I'm going to keep moving here. So right here, I got the next year. They're going to make it to the Stanley Cup final. They're not going to win it. Montreal is going to go ahead and take it this time. No, I'm sorry. Detroit's going to take it over Montreal in the Stanley Cup final. But in this case right here, Ovechkin locks up on another Hart Trophy, giving himself 5 consecutive Hart Trophies.
Wow.
Yeah.
So has anyone had that many consecutive Hart Trophies?
Well, if there's a record, Gretzky's going to have it. So Gretzky had 8 consecutive MVP trophies from 80 to 87. So, but other than that, 5, that'll do. That'll do you. Like, that'll do the record.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so the next year I got him go making the All-Star game, again with the All-Star team again, but I have kind of an off year. And it's the first year I have of Obi not taking home any hardware. No Art Ross, no Hart, no scoring title, no Stanley Cup. And going forward, we start seeing coaches change. We see King Clancy come in, and a former Toronto player, just like their first coach was Hap Day, former Toronto player, and that seems to kind of be their model here as they keep bringing in former Toronto players, which works for some people, I guess. So,
It
so,
works
so
for
I,
some organizations for a
yeah,
long
some
time.
organization works really well. So here we go. Here's my favorite one. 53, 54. I'm gonna go ahead and not give the MVP to Ovi because I have him having an off year this year, even though his season is better than the guy who wins the MVP. But I'm not gonna take it away from him just because it's so egregious. I had to talk about it. This guy, Al Rollins, goalie for the last place Chicago Blackhawks, puts up the league worst goals against average of a 3.21, goes 12 and 47, and they give him the MVP.
What?
Yes,
12 and 47.
with the worst goals against average in the league on the single worst team in the whole league.
Why?
That's
Is this
that's
like
your
we
MVP.
feel bad for this piece of shit because he's on the worst team and he sucks so bad, but he keeps coming back for more?
I looked. I couldn't find a good reason. I'm perplexed by this choice.
That should have been turned to like the "Yes, sir, may I have another?"
Yeah,
like
I mean,
award. You know what I mean? Because this
this
guy kept taking it in the face.
is an era with Maurice Richard, Gordy Howe, John. I mean, you can just throw a puck in the air. You're gonna hit some guy who's a Hall of Famer. You hit Al Rollins. Woof.
How do you take the league seriously when they do stuff like this? You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like you
I
gotta be
don't, I
like,
don't, I don't know. I don't know. Here's this prestigious award, and you have guys like this. It makes no sense. He's one of like 3 players that have won the trophy that's not in the Hall of Fame. That's not obviously active players excluded.
wow.
So it's definitely a strange situation there. Um, so moving forward, I want to keep moving along here. We got another MVP, another Art Ross in 1954, 55, and then we coming up to 55, 56. And there's a 5-year window here where you can just put your sticks away. Montreal is going to go ahead and win it every year. This team is too good. They're too good. It's Jean Beliveau, Bernie Geoffrion, Henri Richard, the Pocket Rocket, Doug Harvey, Maurice Richard, Jacques Plante, Dickie Moore. This team, it was not fair. It's not fair. Like this is why I didn't put Ovechkin on this team because they would never lose.
Yeah, Rocket Richard I've heard of. Like
Rocket
I knew
Richard, his
he
little brother, Henri Richard, is the Pocket Rocket,
the pocket
the
rocket.
worst
Wow.
nickname of all time.
The
But
pocket well, well, yeah, for many other reasons.
yeah, I know what they are. But this guy goes on to 12 Stanley Cup appearances, wins 11 Stanley Cups in his career.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dude, the
Yeah.
pocket rocket was getting the job
The
done.
Pocket Rocket getting the job done.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, obviously the team is super stacked. So take it for what it's worth. But there's no denying the fact that he was a key part of this powerhouse. Jean Beliveau is another guy who's a legend.
You'd almost love to
Love it.
I would love to see them play the Edmonton team of the '80s, you know what I
Oh yeah,
mean?
that's
That'd be
actually not a bad one right there.
yeah,
Maybe one
that'd
of these
be
days we'll do
awesome.
something like that. So after this 5-year window, Punch Imlach is in there. He's the new coach. Obviously, it's hard to hold down a coach when there's one team just dominating everybody for 5 years.
Yeah.
But in this case, right here, Punch Imlach comes in, and the first year out, we have the Chicago Blackhawks win the Stanley Cup. That's their one Stanley Cup. They did it. I'm not going to take it away from them. They earned it. Good for them. I'm happy for Chicago. So the next year, though, we got them winning the Stanley Cup because that's what they did in real life again. They won Toronto won 3 consecutive Stanley Cups after that. From
Wow.
61, 60, 62, 61, 62, 62, 63, 63, 64, 3 more Stanley Cups. So, I mean, I'm not going to take it from Ovechkin here. Again, he's scoring a lot of goals. He's a sister down. I'm kind of having him age appropriately. He's not the MVP of the league anymore. He's not. I have him popping a scoring title in there when 1963, but that's it.
How was the
Um,
league's physicality back in those days? I mean, the guys are bigger now, so you would think the physicality is
yeah,
more
I mean,
tremendous, but was there even more hitting? Was there even more like a brutal
yes.
mentality to it?
Well, there was more of a threat of violence, I would say, than there is today for sure. I don't know if the collisions were as as devastating because now the guys have so much speed that you have these epic collisions. But it was
Yeah.
definitely more of a grind you up against the board style. It was definitely very physical.
Well, you
And
figure
when
they're not wearing helmets either, right?
yeah,
Other than like a couple goalies. So he's got to be taking some head hits, some head shots. The body's been got to be beaten up with the lack of protection he would have in this current day,
yeah.
I would think.
Yeah, no, and that's definitely true. It's definitely true. I think I'm trying to account for that, and then by lowering his percentages coming through the years, and then just adjusting it to have him age a little bit. Well, the problem is we know Ovi has not really slowed down to this point. He's 34 years old. He's not as fast. He doesn't have as many points as he gets, but his goal scoring is never gone away. So I
Yeah.
tried to also consider that. I kept him scoring a lot of goals here. I kept his percentages high. I kept giving him shots. The team's a lot of veterans. They're going to work around him. But it's a really good team still. Like it's a really I think they have like 7 Hall of Famers on this team in 64, 65, not including Ovechkin. So I mean I don't know what to say other than 64, 65. Also, we have Gordy Howe finally passes Ovechkin because Ovechkin took the point scoring lead a few seasons prior for a career. But Gordy Howe goes and takes it from him right here, and he's going to pass him in goal scoring and points rather
Hmm.
because I have Ovi taken over the goal scoring several years before that as well when he surpasses on Maurice Richard again, who surpassed Nels Stewart before him. And it ends up putting us to this spot here. We're reaching the end of his career, 66, 67. It's the last year of Ovechkin's career, and Toronto wins the Stanley Cup in real life again. So basically, what I've done here is I've kind of put him on the team. I've had him affect one additional Stanley Cup. So Ovechkin ends up with 9 Stanley Cup wins.
Phew. Wow.
So, and the problem is, like, I look at Ovechkin, I'm like, yeah, he's amazing. Yeah, he's going to drive the game. He's going to make it different. But, like, the fact is, all these guys are so good. He's one more guy on a team that's loaded, in a league that's loaded. Like, yeah, I think Ovechkin's the best player in the whole league. I think he clearly is. But he's still just one guy. And the other team's got 9 Maurice Richards on their team. Like, what do you, at some point, like, yeah, he makes a difference, but I can't see him. It's not just endless Stanley Cups for Toronto. The other 2 teams, Detroit and Montreal, are both so good too. I just can't take cups away from those guys. So I think that's where we look at this and we go, okay, well, he didn't change the amount of cups they had, but yeah, he's a super vital part of their team. But what I do have him doing is finishing the season, playing what I have him playing here. He plays a 21-year career, ends his career at the age of 39, 807 goals, which is going to go ahead and surpass what Gordy Howe does for his career. Gordy Howe ends up with 801, which ends up putting him as the leading goal scorer until Gretzky goes ahead and breaks it all those years later, back in 98, 99. Oh, I'm sorry, 94, 95 is when Gretzky breaks it. Gretzky retires 98, 99.
Yeah.
So he holds that record for a long time there. He doesn't have the points. Gordy Howe holds that until Gretzky comes along and breaks that. But I do have him with 5 Hart Rosses. I have him 10 different times he leads the league in goals. I got him with 6 MVPs. I mean, I think there's a case to be made. Yeah, he didn't score as many goals, as many points as Gretzky did, but he's got way more cups. His goals per game is way higher than Gretzky's. Gretzky had more assists, and Gretzky had more goals, but Gretzky played more games because he played the full 82 game seasons. And this guy starts out playing 60 game seasons here. So you look at his point scoring, his shot percentage is really high. He's going to get tons of shots still. I think there's a real case to be made that Ovechkin ends up being the best player, best goal scorer at the very least of all time. And I think that could happen today. And I think the same thing would happen if we drop him back in original 6 era here.
Yeah, if you look at the numbers you gave him, obviously the other thing is the accolades, the hardware he receives
Yeah.
is going to far outweigh what he has now currently.
Yeah.
And obviously the championships. I mean, now he's got 8 more championships than he does in his current career, and he's got great points. But you're right, there's a case to be made that he is probably going to be potentially have more goals and assists than he would in this current day and age because he'll play a little longer and more games,
Yeah.
and he'll like slow down less in this day and age than he would back in the 40s and 50s.
And that's exactly what I think. I think, yeah, the beating, I think the age, I think today's game is not that it's soft, but it's less it's less. I mean, these guys would fight with sticks. I don't know what else to say other than that. They would literally swing sticks like swords at each other. Like, like people
Yeah.
died. People died doing this. Like this was insane. Like at
It,
least he doesn't have to deal with that. Like in the
I
modern day.
imagine it being like, think about this. You're out on the ice and skates basically in a sweater and pants and no helmet. Like
Yeah.
it'd be like going out and playing tackle football without anything on. There's bones are gonna break.
So
The injury factor is gonna be greater for him, even though he's probably built a little better to take it. These guys are probably gonna double and triple up on him too. They're probably gonna be like, yeah, we gotta take this guy out.
do you, in your opinion, is he better off today than he would have been if we dropped him the original six for his legacy?
Original six, I mean, you're gonna put him up there with Gordy Howe, Rocket Richard, the big names. But I think even with all the hardware, you're gonna look at it and you're gonna say, well, he was on,
It was the era. It was the
yeah,
era.
he's in an era of teams that are just winning a ton because there was only really three great teams, and those
Like when we
three
talk about looking at Henri Richard with his 11 Stanley Cups, you're like, yeah, but
he's yeah.
yeah, like you would be saying that about Ovechkin's stats if he had played back then. And I think
I
you're right. But
I
again,
probably think the numbers are like his numbers are gonna be great. I think his hardware is gonna be better. But ultimately, I'd say in this day and age, you're probably gonna be more impressed by what he does when his career's all said and done because you're like, wow, he did this against the top like echelon of physical competition, like the peak of physicality,
yeah,
evolutionarily, speaking of modern day hockey players, and this guy's tearing it up, and he's probably going to have more longevity. I mean, instead
yeah,
of retiring at 39, this guy could probably play into his 40s and
yeah.
still be successful. But
So so
man,
so,
those
so
numbers.
let me throw it over to you. Let's get our plugs out of the way and come back with some final thoughts here. I have one more thing I want to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. So become a Patreon. All right. Go to patreon.com/Light Studios. Support our show. You like us, you love what we're doing. It's really easy. $2, $4, $5, $10. There's tiers, and you're gonna get all the bonus John's episodes. You're gonna get additional episodes and different stuff from us. Hey, we might even be able to put some swag out there at some point for you. So really support us. We could use it. You love us, help us out. You know what I mean? And you're also supporting Light Studios, and you're supporting our other podcast, Game Johns and Screen Johns as well. Thank you to the Russell James John support group patrons. You guys, you've been doing it from the beginning. You're awesome. You're leading the way. Everybody follow their lead. All right. Follow their example. If you just want to support us and you don't want to do the monthly subscription thing, or just go to glow.fm/GGMP. You could support our show. And thank you for that. Thank you to Luke Mullet for our theme music. Thank you to Light Studios for putting on the podcast. Of course, our wonderful producer, Anthony Zacola, the man behind the curtains. Thank you for everything you do. And our awesome audio engineer, Maria Lubanovic. Thank you for just tearing it up for us, kicking ass, making us sound good, keeping us going. If you want to reach Alex, myself, real simple, allmylinks.com/GGMP. I say it every week, allmylinks.com/GGMP. So easy. Everything's there. Our website, our social media, ways to reach the show. It's cool. Check out our website, learn more about us. Hit us up. We want to know how we're doing. Also, go to LanternLightStudios.com for information about all our shows, Game Johns, Screen Johns, and the gaming projects that Lantern Light's doing. So really awesome. Check them out. If you love us, give those 5-star reviews. Give those great ratings on Apple Podcasts. We're also on Amazon Music now. Go and check us out. Rate us. Let us know what we're doing, and we surely appreciate it. So thank you very much, and that's what I got.
Great job, Reno. That's a great read right there. So
Thank you, sir.
before we get out of here, I wanted to talk about one thing. And it has nothing really to do with Ovechkin, and really it precedes the original six. But I find it to be such an interesting situation, such an interesting character that I know we'll never have a chance to talk about this again. So I want to do it right now.
Okay.
At the start of the original six era, 42-43, the leading goal scorer, the leading point scorer is one guy, Nels Stewart, Old Poison they call him.
Yes, Nels.
This is the guy who Maurice Richard breaks his records when he comes in. This is first his other guys. His points record goes to Sid Howe, Bill Cowley, Elmer Locke, then Maurice
Question:
Richard. But
Why
this
do they
guy
call him
scored
Old Poison?
this guy scored 324 goals, 515 points in an era that is so bizarro world that this man got the nickname from Old Poison because what he would do was he would hang around the net and he couldn't skate very well. So his excuse was he would hold on to the net for balance.
So he's a cherry picker that can't skate. So wait,
So
he's
yes,
he's like Happy Gilmore and a
yes.
cherry picker.
So he's cherry picking, can't skate, hangs around the net to hold on to it. And then he chews tobacco and spits it into the goalie's eyes to distract him while he scores.
What?
That's how he got the nickname Old Poison.
What?
This guy is the all-time leading scorer heading into 1942-43 when the original six starts. Nels Stewart is a goddamn legend, and we don't appreciate him enough.
Wait, and they did nothing about this. Like no one was like, "You've got to cut the shit."
I mean, the
No
reality,
one gave him the cut the shit speech.
these men had when they fought, they swung sticks like swords. Are you prepared to die for that stand?
Dude, listen, if
Because
somebody
you might
spits,
have to. You might have to.
I'm telling you right now, I'm fucking sitting there minding my own business, trying to goaltend, win the game, and some motherfucker spits some chaw in my eyes. He's getting McSorleyed, and I'm not even doing it from behind. Like I'm fucking axing him. Like I'm putting one right in his throat. I don't even care.
No,
I'll watch him die in front of me. That's
it-
fucked up.
it's the most absurd behavior for the single best player in the sport at that time. Like,
Dude, he
can't skate and spits in goalie's eyes and leads the league in career goals.
You know what? I don't know how much anthrax spreads, but I'd pull like an envelope of anthrax and throw it back in this guy's face.
So
I'll Chong Li him. I put some of that white powder dust. I'd Chong Li him and fucking roundhouse him with a skate. What the hell?
I
Old
want
Poison?
to get a Nell Stewart tattoo in
Well-
honor of Nell Stewart. We should probably call it right here. This has
Oh,
been
man.
Greatest Games Never Played. Shout out to our man, Old Poison.